My name's Zane. I'm 24 now, but this all started when I was 22. I'd just gotten into med school. That sentence still feels unreal to say. Not because I didn't believe in myself, but because no one else really did. Especially not my family. I don't come from a place where achievements are celebrated equally. In our house, my older brother, Jeremy, was the golden child. Straight A's, varsity everything, clean cut, obedient. And then there was me, the artsy, quiet one who liked anatomy diagrams a little too much for a kid. The one who didn't follow the plan. Jeremy got into med school 2 years before me, and when he did, it was like the queen herself had RSVP'd. I remember coming home from class that day to balloons, banners, even a catering truck in the driveway. Our backyard was packed with neighbors, co-workers, cousins I hadn't seen in years, all toasting to Dr. Jeremy in the making. My parents gave speeches, my mom cried, and my dad kept saying things like, "This is what it looks like when hard work pays off." I was proud of him, genuinely. But something about the way everyone acted, like he was the only one who ever dared to dream big, stuck with me. Fast forward 2 years. I applied to several med schools in secret. No announcement, no wish me luck. I didn't even tell my parents I was taking the MCAT until I'd already scored well. I studied in the early mornings, between shifts at the clinic where I worked reception. I used every break I had to review flashcards, watch lectures during dinner, while everyone else binge-watched reality shows. And finally, one morning, I opened the email that changed everything. "Congratulations, you've been accepted." I just stared at it. I reread it 10 times before I let myself believe it. Then I called my best friend, Mateo, and we both screamed like fools on the phone. That night, I printed the email and left it on the kitchen table. I didn't say anything, just waited. The next morning, my mom congratulated me in a casual, distracted tone, like I'd said I got promoted to assistant manager at a supermarket. My dad skimmed the letter and muttered, "Huh. Well, didn't think you'd actually make it, but good for you." That sentence. It echoed in my head for days. Didn't think you'd actually make it. No smile. No hug. No, I'm proud of you. Just an offhand remark like I'd stumbled into it by luck. It burned more than I thought it would. And when Jeremy texted, "Heard the news. Welcome to the club, little bro." I knew he meant well, but even that felt like a pat on the head. I could have let it go. I told myself, they don't mean to be cruel. Maybe they just don't get it. But when I asked if we could have a small dinner, not a party, just something simple with family, my mom blinked like I'd asked her to co-sign a mortgage. "Well, we just did something big for Jeremy not too long ago," she said. "And money's tight." I didn't remind her that his celebration had cost nearly 5 grand. I just nodded and said I understood. That night, I called Mateo. "Let's throw our own thing," I said. "Something small. Just close friends. People who actually believe in me." He was all in. He offered his aunt's garden terrace, which overlooked the hills and had soft lights strung above a wooden deck. We planned it for 2 weekends later. I paid for everything myself: charcuterie boards, drinks, candles, music. I even rented a photo booth, because, why not? I wanted it to feel like a memory worth keeping. I didn't invite my family. It wasn't revenge at first. It was self-preservation. I didn't want awkward energy or half-hearted claps. I didn't want my sister, Olivia, showing up and telling everyone how Jeremy had 3 offers, not just one. I wanted joy unfiltered, so I didn't tell them about it. I posted nothing on social media. Just one story after the party. A single candid, snapped by a friend. Me, laughing with a glass in my hand, with the lights twinkling behind me and the caption, "Made it." I didn't expect what came next. Turns out one of Mateo's friends who came works for a local paper. They'd been doing a small column featuring rising locals, highlighting young adults from the area doing big things. That friend submitted a write-up about me without telling me. 2 days after the party, a photo of me smiling in front of the cake, a simple white one that read "Dr. Z in progress," showed up in the Sunday lifestyle section. It wasn't huge, just a half-page blurb with the headline, "Local student celebrates medical school acceptance with close friends." I didn't even know it had printed until Olivia sent me a screenshot. No congrats. No emojis. Just, "You had a party and didn't invite us." I stared at the text for a long time. Then came a message from my mom. "Why didn't we know about this?" Then my dad. "This was in the paper? What will people think?" Then Jeremy. "Bro, this feels kinda petty." I didn't reply. They weren't angry because they missed me. They were angry because other people saw they were missing. That night, Olivia called. I let it ring 4 times before I picked up. Her voice was cold. I had to find out from a newspaper that my own brother had a celebration, she said. Do you know how embarrassing that is? I kept my voice calm. Not as embarrassing as hearing your own dad say he didn't think you'd make it. She went quiet. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. But then she scoffed. You're being dramatic. And there it was, the dismissal I grew up with. I hung up without another word. The next week, things got weird. Jeremy showed up at my job with coffee. He acted casual, like he was just in the area. Look, he said, I get it. You worked hard. You deserved a party. But you didn't even invite mom and dad? That's kind of messed up, man. I asked him if he remembered what dad said the day I got in. He didn't respond. I asked him if he ever thought about what it was like being the shadow to his spotlight. He said, it's not a competition. And maybe it wasn't. But I'd been keeping score since I was a kid. A few days later, my mom tried to guilt-trip me with a family group text. A photo of the backyard, set up with chairs and snacks. The caption, families always here when it counts. I didn't answer. That weekend, I ran into one of my old teachers at the grocery store. She saw me, smiled, and said, your article was lovely. Your parents must be so proud. I forced a smile. Yeah, they're thrilled. But inside, something had shifted. I didn't want revenge at first. But now it felt like they needed a reminder of just how invisible I'd been to them, and how good I'd become at staying that way. A few days after that awkward run-in with my old teacher, I found myself pacing my apartment, thoughts swirling. I wasn't angry in the explosive, shout-at-the-sky kind of way. It was colder than that. I was done. Something in me had officially snapped into place. I'd spent years trying to earn their respect, to be noticed in the same way Jeremy had been since he could tie his shoes. And now that I had earned something huge, something they once considered impossible, they were upset they weren't part of it. Not because they cared about me, but because it made them look bad. That distinction matters. I didn't respond to the group chat. I didn't call back. Instead, I doubled down on something I'd quietly started the year before, documenting everything I'd done for the family, especially financially. See, while I was working part-time jobs and studying nonstop, I was also quietly picking up the slack around the house, paying utilities when the bills accidentally got too high, covering Olivia's surprise car repair when she cried to mom and mom sighed and said, well, maybe Zane can help. I'd Venmo'd Jeremy $1,000 when he forgot about a rent deadline during his second year and didn't want to ask dad because he'd make it a thing. They all remembered those things in the moment. But the second I stopped being useful, I became invisible again. So I started compiling receipts. It wasn't about money. Not really. It was about truth. About finally making them see. I put together a folder titled Unnoticed Contributions, bills, transactions, texts where they asked for help, screenshots, dates. I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with it, but I wanted it ready. For once in my life, I wanted to have proof that I wasn't the moody, distant one because I lacked love. I was that way because I learned to be. Meanwhile, word of the newspaper photo kept spreading. Old neighbors started commenting on my post. Mateo told me his mom clipped the article and taped it to her fridge. I thought that was sweet, until Olivia posted a story on Instagram 2 days later. A picture of Jeremy in his white coat, smiling like a toothpaste ad, with the caption, proud of this one every day. Family goals blue heart. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't mentioned. Just a not-so-subtle reminder of who they thought was really worth celebrating. That's when I made a decision. The medical school I got into wasn't just any school. It was good, competitive, top 20 in the country. The kind of program people moved states for. I hadn't planned on moving out of town. I figured I'd save money by staying with family, commute, help out where I could. But suddenly, the idea of living under the same roof as people who only clapped when it made them look generous? It made my skin crawl. I called the admissions office the next day and confirmed I'd be accepting the relocation option. Campus housing, 6 hours away. New state. New start. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't even hint. Instead, I spent the next 3 weeks packing in silence. I kept everything low-key. I told Olivia I was reorganizing my room. When Jeremy came over once to borrow a charger, he didn't notice the taped-up boxes in my closet. And then, on the day I left, a Wednesday morning in late June, I left 2 things behind. My keys on the kitchen counter with a short note. Not moving out, moving on. I'll let you know when I land. A copy of the newspaper article, the one Olivia found out from, pinned to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a graduation cap. Then I turned off my phone and drove. I expected a flood of texts, missed calls, maybe even guilt-trippy voicemails about abandoning the family. But when I turned my phone back on hours later, there were only 4 messages waiting for me. From Olivia, seriously? That's how you tell us. From Dad, good luck, I guess. Keep us posted. From Mom, call when you get there. And try not to be dramatic. And the 4th? From Jeremy, let me know if you need help settling in. Proud of you, man. That one caught me off guard. I stared at it for a long time, unsure if it was sincere or just damage control. I didn't respond. Not yet. The new apartment was small, barely more than a dorm with kitchen privileges, but it was mine. I unpacked slowly, set up my study area, hung up a corkboard with quotes I liked. One of them said, "Silence isn't empty. It's full of answers." I kept that one front and center. Orientation came and went. I made new friends. Professors remembered my name. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was playing catch-up to someone else's legacy. Until a week later, something strange happened. My roommate walked in holding a letter. "Hey, this came for you," he said. "Looks kinda formal." It was a thick cream envelope with embossed lettering. Inside was a fancy invitation. My parents were throwing a joint celebration dinner in honor of our sons, Jeremy and Zane, future doctors of our family. It was being hosted at a fancy restaurant back home. Dozens of RSVPs. An open bar. A slideshow, even. But here's the thing. I hadn't been invited. The envelope was addressed to Dr. Zane Carter. Not from my parents, from the restaurant. They never told me. Never called. Never asked if I'd attend. They just put my name on the invite like I was some accessory to Jeremy's success. Like now that I had a bit of recognition, they could finally use me. And that's when the plan came together. Because I wasn't just going to skip the dinner. No, I was going to make sure they remembered exactly why I wasn't there. And I already knew how. The idea came to me while I stared at that stupid envelope. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was clarity. Like a puzzle I'd been trying to solve for years had finally clicked into place. They hadn't invited me. Not directly, at least. No phone call. No personal message. No, "We want to celebrate you." They didn't care about me. They cared about the image, about both sons being med students. A perfect family tableau to post, toast, and boast. I tucked the invitation under my desk lamp and stared at it for a long time. The thought of them lifting glasses in my name, while I sat hundreds of miles away like some silent endorsement, made my stomach churn. But I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to call or text or beg to be seen. I was going to show them what happens when you treat your son like a backup trophy. So I called Mateo. "I need a favor," I said. "And I promise it's going to be beautiful." He was in immediately. "What are we talking? Billboard? Banner? Helicopter drop?" I laughed. "Not quite. I need someone to attend the dinner. Not me, someone else." "You want a +1 to a dinner you're not going to?" "Exactly. But not just anyone. I want someone with a camera." It clicked for him instantly. "You want proof. Not just proof. I want the look on their faces documented. When they realize I'm not coming. When they read the letter I'm going to have delivered instead. When the slideshow gets to the slide about me, and there's nothing to show." Mateo was practically vibrating through the phone. "Zane, this is next-level petty genius. What do you need me to do?" Over the next few days, we put everything into motion. I wrote a letter. Short, sharp, and impossible to misinterpret. I had it printed on heavy linen paper and sealed it in an envelope with a wax stamp. Not because I'm fancy, because I wanted it to feel final. The letter read, "To whom it may concern, thank you for organizing a celebration in my honor without ever speaking to me. You didn't ask if I wanted to be there. You didn't ask if I felt celebrated when I got into med school. You didn't even say congratulations. So I hope tonight's toast goes smoothly. I hope the slideshow runs without glitches. I hope the guests nod and clap and say, 'What a wonderful family.' But I won't be there to smile for your cameras. Because I'm not an accessory in someone else's narrative. I'm not a prop in the story you only tell when it's convenient. Sincerely, Zane Carter." I had the envelope hand-delivered by a courier Mateo arranged. Not some teenager in a hoodie. We hired a well-dressed delivery service, someone who would show up, ask for my parents by name, and deliver the letter during the dinner, right around the time they were planning the toast. Meanwhile, Mateo was my inside man. He snagged an invitation from one of his cousins who was friendly with Olivia. He dressed sharp, brought a camera disguised as a phone stabilizer, and promised to record everything discreetly. The night of the dinner arrived. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't bitter. I made myself tea, lit a candle, and watched the sun set from my dorm window. It was peaceful. I felt unburdened. Then, right around 8:37 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mateo, delivered right before the toast. You're not going to believe what happened next. And then came the photos. Blurry at first. People seated at long, white-clothed tables, glasses raised, a projector set up near the back wall. The slideshow had started. Jeremy's photos, white coat ceremony, first day of classes, a group shot with classmates. I wasn't in any of them. Then, according to Mateo, a slide appeared that said, "And now, our other future doctor, Zane." Only there was no photo. Just a spinning load icon, a file that hadn't been uploaded. Then came the courier, stepping to the table, straight-faced and professional. He handed the envelope to my mother. She opened it, read one line, and went completely still. My dad took it from her and read the rest. Mateo wrote, "You could hear the air change, like someone opened a freezer in July." Then Olivia grabbed the paper, skimmed it, and loudly whispered, "Are you serious?" He's such a diva. My mom stood up, tried to regain control, and raised her glass anyway. "To our sons," she said, voice a little shaky. "Both working hard to become doctors." But nobody clapped. And Jeremy? Jeremy looked down at his plate and didn't say a word. Mateo's last photo of the night was of the dessert table. Uneaten slices of cake. An untouched second frame that said, "Congratulations, Zane and Jeremy," with two printed photos clipped to the corner. Only one photo was there. The other clip dangled, empty. Mateo texted one last time. "You did it. You stole the whole show without even showing up." I didn't reply. I just stared at the photo and smiled. And then the next day, I got a message I wasn't expecting. It was from Jeremy. "I didn't know they didn't tell you. I thought you were coming. Can we talk?" And that's when I realized this story wasn't over. Not yet. I didn't respond to Jeremy's message right away. I sat with it, reread it the next morning, again that afternoon, and once more late at night when I couldn't sleep. I kept asking myself, did he really not know? Or is this just more of the same, trying to clean up the mess now that it's public? But something about the way he wrote it, short, direct, almost unsure, didn't feel like the polished, confident version of Jeremy I'd grown up with. It felt real, human. So, for the first time since all of this began, I decided to stop assuming. I told him we could talk. Video call. Just us. He called me that night, and for once, he didn't open with a joke or a line. He just looked at the screen for a second before saying, "Hey." I leaned back in my chair. "So you didn't know?" Jeremy shook his head. "I swear, Zane. They told me you were invited. That you'd be there. Mom said you were just being dramatic and not answering. I thought you were going to show up last minute and make a scene. Like always." That last bit stung, but I let it slide. "I never got an invite," I said. "I didn't even know about it until the restaurant sent me a formal letter. They were throwing a dinner with my name on it, and no one told me." Jeremy rubbed his face. "I didn't know. I mean, I figured things were tense, but I didn't realize how bad it got." "It's always been like this," I said, quieter. "You just didn't have to notice. You were too busy being the favorite." He sighed. "Yeah, I think I wanted to believe everything was fine between you and them, because it made things easier for me. I didn't want to see how different they treated you." I didn't say anything. He continued. "But after that letter, and after watching Mom try to fake that toast, man, it was obvious. You were right. You're not just an accessory. You deserve to be more than a side note in your own story." It was the first time in my entire life that Jeremy admitted I had a point. It didn't erase everything, but it mattered. Then he said something I didn't expect. "You know, I never really liked that party they threw for me. Not the med school one. It felt like they were celebrating themselves, not me. Like they were more excited about telling people they raised a future doctor than the fact that I got in." I blinked. "You never said that. Would you have believed me?" He had a point. The call ended with something rare. Not a resolution, but a handshake between two people who had finally started seeing each other clearly. We weren't suddenly best friends, but something had shifted. After that, things moved quickly. My mom texted me 3 days later with a long paragraph about how things got out of hand and how she wished I had just talked to them about my feelings instead of trying to embarrass everyone. I replied with a single sentence. If I had ever felt heard, I wouldn't have had to write the letter. She didn't respond. Dad tried calling. I let it go to voicemail. His message was short, stiff, and more about how the letter caught them off guard than anything close to an apology. I deleted it without listening to the end. But Olivia, she posted something on social media. A story. A blurry photo of her wine glass. A caption in white text. Some people just love playing the victim. Must be exhausting. I didn't engage. Not because I didn't have a comeback. I had plenty. But because I'd finally understood the difference between revenge and healing. Revenge was for them. Healing was for me. Instead of spiraling back into the old dynamic, I focused on building the life I'd fought for. Med school was brutal. I spent nights studying until my eyes ached, mornings pounding coffee like water, afternoons buried in case studies and clinicals. But I loved it. I thrived in it. And slowly, I started to feel like the world I'd built for myself, without my family's applause, was the most honest thing I'd ever had. I still spoke to Jeremy, now and then. He sent me a book on surgical anatomy for my birthday, with a sticky note inside that just said, "This one helped me. Hope it helps you." I kept it on my desk. Olivia and I didn't speak again. And my parents? We exchanged 3 texts over the next year. Mostly superficial. Holiday greetings. Polite but hollow. I never brought up the dinner. Neither did they. The silence between us was no longer awkward. It was peaceful. Then, about a year later, something happened. I got an email from the school. I'd been selected for a feature in their quarterly alumni newsletter, a spotlight on first years doing exceptional work in clinicals. They asked for a photo and a quote. I submitted one of me, standing in scrubs in front of the hospital, smiling with a stethoscope around my neck. And my quote, "The people who believe in you are your real family, blood or not." When the newsletter came out, it got shared on the school's social media. A few old friends reshared it. Mateo texted me a string of celebratory emojis. I didn't think much of it until I got a message from my aunt, my mom's sister. She wrote, "Just saw the post. Wow, I didn't even know you were doing this well. Your parents don't talk about you much anymore. They say things are complicated. But I just want to say, I'm proud of you. Truly." That hit harder than I expected. Not because I needed her validation, but because it confirmed something I'd long suspected. My family wasn't just silent around me. They were rewriting the story altogether. They weren't proud. They were embarrassed. Not because of what I did, but because I refused to play my role. Because I stood up and said, "No, you don't get to celebrate me when it's convenient. You don't get to put me on your mantle after leaving me in the shadows." And you know what? I'm okay with that. I graduate next year. Mateo says we're throwing the biggest damn party the city's ever seen. But this time, no borrowed gardens or soft lights. He's talking rooftop venue, string quartet, custom cocktails, the whole deal. And who's on the guest list? Just the people who were there when it mattered. No space for staged toasts. No room for empty chairs. Just real faces, real support, real love. Because in the end, it's not about revenge. It's about recognition. And I don't need theirs anymore. I've already found my own.